Hello, welcome back for part 4 this time of building a beach buggy with me, Neil. What we're going to do in this episode, we're going to do more cutting, grinding, welding, that sort of thing. We're still very much in the fabrication stage of building this thing. Looking forward to the day that we can get it all sandblasted and painted and then start doing all the final assembly, all the nice shiny stuff. So that's all coming up in some future episodes. One thing I've said from the outset is I wasn't sure how regular these videos were going to be or how long they were going to be. There's been a little bit more of a gap between this part and the other parts. The main reason for that is I've just had a little bit of a holiday and I sent myself to the Volkswagen show in the UK because as most of you know, I'm from Guernsey in the Channel Islands, little island in between England and France. So hopped on the ferry, went to the Volkswagen show to get some inspiration, saw some amazing stuff there, stuff like this and this. Yeah, really given me some good inspiration to hopefully get this thing built to a good enough standard that I get to show it there myself one day. The other thing that I've been sort of umming and ahhing about is the length of the episodes. Now, I think I've sort of landed on about 20-25 minutes, somewhere around there. I think that's about right. I don't want them to be so long that you get bored. I don't want them to be so short that they're not worth watching. Let us know what you think is an ideal length for these sorts of things. I think that 20-25 minutes kind of makes sense because it's about the same length as an episode of The Simpsons, and that's the best show ever made. So yeah, I think that makes sense. One thing that amazes me still is the amount of views this is getting. It might not seem like a lot to some people, but to me, I'm amazed at how well this is doing. To the point where I've just had some food delivered, which I often do when I'm working late in the garage. And the guy that delivered the food knew who I was, which was pretty funny because his mate had been talking about it. So that's pretty cool, I think. Anyway, that's enough of my waffling on. Let's get cracking. Let's get making some sparks, making some mess, and yeah, doing what we do. So here we go, part 4. Okay, next on our to-do list is to run the fuel line and the brake line through the spine. Normally, the fuel line does run through the middle of it. The brake line normally runs on the outside of it, which, yeah, it kind of makes sense for a daily driven vehicle for serviceability and things like that. We're not worried about that. So we're going to go for maximum neatness and run it through the middle of that spine. So our fuel line is a bit of that. 8mm or 5/16, I think it is, copper nickel pipe. And again, copper nickel brake line, which is 3/16 of an inch, which is about 4.8mm, something like that. Now, the only issue with that is they come on a coil, so not particularly straight. First thing we need to do is straighten out those pipes and then figure out how we're going to get them in there so they're safe and sound, so nothing can disturb them or damage them or anything like that. So as far as straightening out the pipe goes, there's a really neat old school trick for doing that, which is drilling a hole through a piece of wood. I didn't really have a piece big enough, so I've got 2 bits clamped together there in the vise. Drill a hole all the way through, spray it with a bit of WD-40 to lubricate it, and then basically just draw the tube back and forth through that block of wood, and then eventually it ends up pretty damn straight. Now the only issue, that works fine for the smaller diameter brake pipe, but for the bigger stuff, which is about 8mm, just knocked up that, which is actually working really well. All that is a couple of bits of aluminium, and there's just some bearings in there. Those are bearings that are actually, they're spare ones for my bicycle hub, so I didn't even have to go out and buy anything to make this. It's just some scrap aluminium, a couple of bearings in there, and what we do is we'll just prop you up there, pass it through like that. Little bit awkward, but you should see what I'm getting at. So basically, just by working that back and forth, rotating it as I go, we're pretty good on that. So we're just going to do a couple of long lengths of that, and then figure out how we're going to secure it inside the chassis. So here's the plan to stop things from jingling around in there or getting damaged or anything like that. Just got some rubber fuel hose with the right inside diameter so that it just fits snugly over each pipe size, and then got some of that galvanized steel tube, so we're going to cut a length of that, weld it inside there, and then when the frame head is welded to the front of this, there's an access hole in the front. So the idea there is that we can pass these through, get them through there, they'll shoot out the back, so there's no need to secure it in any way. You know, once they're within that tube, they can't go anywhere. They're going to be absolutely safe and sound in there. An absolute worst case, if they ever did need replacing for some reason, you can get to it. You've got access at the front and the back, and once it goes in there, there's nothing stopping it. So that's really future proof, that. So we'll have to chop that down to length, weld it inside. Where it's going to come out the back, I think what I'm going to do there is, let me just put my light on. Yeah, so that's our clutch cable and throttle cable like we saw earlier. This space on this side is kind of redundant really, so I can replicate this hole on this side, have the fuel line and the brake line come out there, and then I can use this like a neat little rubber grommet designed to fit around this part, so I can literally just do the same there. So that's a really neat solution. So that's next on the list. Let's get that done. That was a good shot, wasn't it? So the size that we need is 1200mm, which is there. What I like to do when I'm cutting tube like this and I want it to be as straight as possible is a bit of that 2-inch masking tape, and then wrap it round, sticky side out, and that way when it lines up with itself, now I can just slide it up to my mark, and I know that that's going to be a nice straight cut. Teaching a lot of you to suck eggs here, you know, this is pretty day one stuff, but it's amazing how many people aren't aware of just simple little tricks like that. Another thing I like to do, just to stop it moving, just a bit like that, nice and easy. There we go. That's that chopped out and cleaned out with the Dremel. Also, you see I've cut a little window in that there as well, so that our pipes can just come through there. And if I can turn it over one-handed, no, not really, I'll just go in from there. You can see our pipe is welded in there all the way down, so those bits can go through there without being disturbed or anything like that. Lovely jubbly. Right, what next? Okay, the next thing that we're going to do a bit of work to is this, the frame head. It's got this hole in the front, which is like an access hole, so that you can run the rod that goes from the shifter all the way back to the gearbox, and obviously any of our tubes and cables and things that we've got to run through, they'll all get passed through the front here. For some reason on this reproduction frame head, the hole is a different size and shape to a factory Volkswagen one, which is normally sort of oval shaped. It's got a bolt hole either side for a nice removable plate there. Seeing as we've got to open this out anyway, I'm going to make it as, you know, as big as possible, because that hole there, I mean, that's no use to me. Fine if you're a 12-year-old girl trying to put your hand in there, but I'm not getting these big hams in there, no chance. So we'll make it as big as possible, make it nice and neat so it looks like a sort of a factory thing. So that's next. There we go, got our nice big hole in the front now, so I can get my hand all the way through and hello, out the other side there. That's going to make life a hell of a lot easier. Now we just got to make a cover plate to go over the front. There we go, that's our jumbo access hatch panel closure plate jobby, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just rounded the edges over, make it nice and sort of, so when it's painted black it looks like it could have been something that was there from the factory. So I've got our little threaded bungs welded in there. I'll make a rubber gasket to go around the back to seal it. But yeah, nice little simple piece of fabrication, but it's doing the simple things like this neatly is how you end up with you know, just a better job overall, I think. There we go, another job done, on to the next one. Right, next up we get to put our plate on the bottom of the spine there, because we're done with everything inside now. We get to box it all in, make it all good and solid. So what I've done is I've just gone around the edges that are going to be welded with a grinder and just grinded off the mill scale, and then sprayed it with the good old weld through primer there. And what I've done, just to make sure the welder is dialed in properly, is used the offcut of the piece that we're putting in the bottom, and the offcut that we obviously don't need anymore, and drilled a hole, 7mm hole every 1 inch, and yeah, just plug welded those up, and that's got the welder set up just how we want it, nice and neat. So next up, gonna mark God knows how many holes along there, drill them all, and bang that bit on. Exciting stuff. It's a sad day. Trusty drill, about 15 years old. She's finally dead. Boo! Oh well, it gives me an excuse to buy a new one. I like buying new tools. In the bin she goes. Served me well. Built an entire hot rod, motorbike, numerous other stuff. But nothing lasts forever. Goodbye, old friend. Back in business. That's going there. Time for lots of clamps. Okay, that's us welded every inch. I don't even want to count how many it is, but she's rock solid. So now I've just got to run around the edge with a sanding disc. I just want to get these two pieces perfectly flush, sand off the tops of those plug welds there, so our floor pans can go over the top and be welded with the same process basically. More welding, more grinding, more dust, more mess. Here we go, so this is the process for sanding them down. Good old 36 grit sanding disc in the grinder. You can see we're part way through sanding those ones there. That's obviously unsanded, and that's what it looks like when it's done. So our new floor pan will sit on top of that. It'll be nice and neat. Now I'm going to sand this other side and then call it a day for now. I know I said that I was going to finish plug welding those edges there and then call it a day, but I got carried away, which isn't unusual to be honest. Put down the MIG welder and picked up the TIG welder and seam welded all the way along that joint. Probably completely unnecessary, probably overkill. But I wanted to do it, so do it is what I did. I'm really glad I did, because it gives a really nice sort of sealed edge there. So not only is it stronger, it's less likely for any sort of corrosion or anything to creep in or out of there in the future. So that's going to do it for part 4 this is now. One thing that I said that I wouldn't do, which is tell people what to do. You know, I've said from day one, this isn't how to, it's just me showing you how I'm doing things. But one thing that I really recommend that you do, it's a little bit of a sort of tech tip, people seem to like those. It's just a stupid, silly little thing that makes things so much less stressful when you're dealing with countless grinders and all sorts of other tools. You know those annoying power cords that come on a grinder? They always get tangled. They're only about this long. You've got to plug them into an extension lead. You end up with cords all over the shop. The first thing that I do whenever I get a new grinder is take it apart, take the cord out, go to the electrical shop and buy about 5 meters of this stuff, which is really nice, sort of extra floppy, bendy flex. It's amazing. I can literally plug this into any socket in my workshop, get to any corner of my workshop without any extension leads or any of that nonsense. It just doesn't get tangled. Look, it's amazing. You can have 3 or 4 of them all dragging over each other. They don't get tangled up, and then they're just a piece of cake to coil up again at the end of the day. So that is a tip that you can have for free, and I will see you next time on Building a Buggy with me. Now, go build something, or go change the cord on your grinder, because yeah, you won't get nearly as stressed as you do at the moment, believe me. See you next time.